G'day guys, Ben and Simon here from Pumped on Property. Today, I am actually so pumped.
Yes.
This podcast is something that I've been really excited to film for a little while now. We do talk about the 2 properties to financial freedom strategy and how you can go from where you are now to a place where in 15 years time, you may be able to have millions of dollars worth of equity and over $100,000 per year. But this podcast is less tactical. We do go through the steps on how to achieve it, the 3 steps to financial freedom, but more we go up a level today and we talk about why we think it's so important to work towards this, why you don't actually need to go out there and buy 5 to 10 properties like so many people online tell you do. And it does take a bit of a philosophical, spiritual tint as well, where we share sort of some of the things that we're doing and that clients have been doing to not just get free, but to get happy on the journey to freedom too.
And at the end of the day, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're investing in property, to create a passive income, to have that financial freedom and live a life filled with choices. So having that underlying motivating factor, whatever is pulling you towards doing what you need to do to make it happen. And we get super personal and start to break down some of the reasons why we're doing these things and some of the activities that we do on a regular basis to keep us motivated and focused on executing the plan and sticking to the path. So super pumped to get into it. Let's talk about our 2 properties to financial freedom strategy. All right, the time has come to do a bit of a longer format video on our 2 properties to financial freedom strategy. Something that most people probably wouldn't be used to hearing. You know, everyone talks about having a really large property portfolio or lots of money in the stock market to actually achieve financial freedom and generate a passive income. But you know, this is something that we've been working on and implementing for ourselves and clients for over 6 years now. And it's just nice and simple. That's what I love the most about it.
Yeah, I think this idea came out of probably talking to literally thousands of investors between us over the last 9 years. And the most common thing when someone comes in and you say, well, what are your 5 to 15 year goals? And most people, regardless of if they're earning $100K a year or $1 million a year, are kind of like, well, I want 5, 10, an unlimited number of properties. And my first question after I hear them out is like, well, why? What are you really trying to achieve? And for most people, they're trying to move towards a future of $100K per year, $200K per year of passive income, stability by the time they hit retirement, and early retirement, and a life filled with choices. And so, you know, that idea sat with you and I for a long time. And I unfortunately was one of those clients. I was the person that had gone out because I'd read these books, 10 properties in 10 years, 0 to 130 properties in 3.5 years, and was listening to people that were all about just balling out. And I was kind of like, well, I'll just buy as many as I can and as many as the bank will lend me. And it wasn't until I got to property 9, purchase 9, that you and I were like, why again? I was sort of like, well, I'm missing all this time away from my kids. I'm stressed out and anxious as fuck. And I'm really not enjoying my day-to-day anymore because I'm completely burnt out from the way that I've been doing this. Plus, I'll be really wealthy in 30 or 40 years time, but I'm not going to have choices for the next 30 or 40 years time because it's going to take me that long to get rid of all this debt. And so we went through that transition personally, and then we, brought that idea into our clients as well with the help of Ryan from On Property.
Yeah, it's just how can we simplify such a complex idea? Because, most people come to us in the initial strategy session, and, I was talking to this couple the other day and they're absolutely killing it from Sydney, earning over $500,000 per year combined, love their jobs, love their work, happy to work up until 60, 65. But they want to make sure that they've got those choices and that income coming in still when they do get to that stage of life. And, they said that I want to buy 6 to 8 properties over the long term. I'm like, cool. And what do you want those properties to do for you? Like you said, and they're like, well, I really just want about $100,000 worth of passive income from those properties, because the combination of our super plus that 100K from the properties will obviously give us an awesome quality of life and heaps of freedom at that time. And I'm like, well, are you guys open to a bit of a unique idea where instead of buying 6 to 8 properties, you only really need to do 2 or 3 properties to achieve the same passive income goal? And I'm like, what's more important? Is it to own 6, 7 or 8 properties, or is it to have that 100K worth of passive income? And everyone goes, well, it's a passive income.
100%. And it's not that I was wrong. It was just that I thought I needed more to get that same result.
It's just what everyone talks about.
It's what everyone talks about. It's like balling, hustling, going hard. And that is part of every investor's journey, like that excitement that I've got my plan, I've got my deposit, let's go.
Sacrifice, discipline.
Yeah. And like, you know, discipline and consistency are great habits to invest well over the longer term. But my thoughts is, well, why don't you start if you're earning 100 or 200 grand a year by replacing that salary? Or if you're working in a business earning $500,000 a year, then anyone that's in their own business knows that by the time you take out the GST, the tax, and then the top-up tax, you're only really getting half of that back in your pocket, which is still a lot of money. But it was really only after being in 2 or 3 years of business that I realized that 50% of it was pretty much going straight back to the government, if not even more than that, depending on the financial year. And I needed to invest my way to financial security. And then I went, well, what do I really want? And for me, I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve the world. I wanted to have a positive impact. I wanted to be able to pass all the knowledge that you and I have learned together onto people through content like this. And so to do that, I needed to get some of my time back. And I wanted to be a good dad. I wanted to pick up my kids from school. I wanted to be at sport with them. I wanted to travel more, holiday more, take the school holidays off. And so owning heaps of properties and being in heaps of debt is cool when rates are at 2%, but when rates are at 7%, it's actually really heavy.
It is hard work. It's really hard work.
And so I think that concept that we had all of those years ago about a small number of high quality properties to get you to a point where you've got choices in 7 to 15 years from the time you start to begin really living the life that you want, and immediately after you've bought them, have that financial peace and freedom to do what you want to do straight away, is just a game changer for so many people. And then if you want to ball out and go further, then go for it. Like, we'll talk about some examples of people like Hammett. Who else will we talk about today? Maybe Jason and Kim as well.
Yeah, Kevin, myself.
And yourself as well. Like, we can talk about those ideas a bit later once we explain what this is. But, you know, some of those investors have gone for 1 or 2 properties. Others are on their 8s and 9s. So, you know, depends on where you want to go and where you want to ultimately end up.
And rather than having, you know, high levels of debt across a large portfolio where you are forced to deal with external changes, like changing interest rates, changing policies to property investors, all of these things are going to have an impact on your cash flow if you are holding high levels of debt. So, you know, this simple idea that does take time, you know, it's a small number of high quality assets owned outright. So it's not about holding high levels of debt and, you know, using that leverage to try and make money in the future. It's like, no, let's take control of our financial freedom and let's not be influenced by other organizations, other governments, other businesses, so that, you know, regardless of what's going on outside, it doesn't affect my day-to-day life or my day-to-day cash flow as well. So
I love that. Like, before we get into that, sorry, man, to interrupt you, because I know you're about to go like, all right, so let's
step 1.
Step 1 is let's talk about step 0. But yeah, just quickly on that. So I was listening to something this morning while I was doing a bit of yoga, and it was like a bit more philosophical, spiritual, which is like a big part of what I love listening to and have done since I was little. But I suppose for me, they sort of said, like, remember that time before you settled for plan B. Like, remember that stage of life where you're at the starting point and everything was up and you still had a dream and you still had a vision and you still had that young energy where you believed it could happen. And like, what I love, man, about you is
just take a high five when I don't even know why.
Yeah, I just love you. What I love about you is get off the couch. No, but what I love is, like, you had the vision, you executed the vision, and then you updated the vision. So it was like, I'm here, I want choices and financial freedom in 5 to 7 years from now is what we originally sat down and did. You did the work over a 3 to 4 year period. It was brutal. and stuff comes up and it tests you and it takes you out of your comfort zone. And then you reset the vision back to like, well, what do I really want now that I've got financial peace? Well, I want choices. I want to surf more. I want to train more. I want to take time off with your new bub. Like, I want to spend more time with my partner. I want to like do these things. I want to travel more, snowboard more, surf more. And I think there was a time for all of us before, like, it got either ripped away at school, at university, in the job, by a partner, by a family or friends that thought they were protecting you, where you believed that it was possible to become and have everything that you wanted to become and have in your life. And obviously there's days that are really hard. There's weeks that are hard. I've had hard years, and a lot of people listening to this would as well. But what if you could be financially free earlier? Who could you serve? Who could you help? Who could you inspire? What could you become? What could you do if you had all your time back? And that's what this is really about. Like, I love this. Like, it's not about owning a few properties outright. That's just the means, like hopping in a car to get to a destination. The outcome is, who could you be living without fear?
And this is a world that I want to see, you know, like it motivates me so much more than the financial goals, is to just see what I can do personally. But my goal and our goal is to help at least 1,000 people generate over $100,000 per year of passive income. And I just want to see what the byproduct of that is going to be, what people choose to do with their time when they don't have to, you know, go to that job that they may not like to pay the bills and put food on the table and a roof over their head. Because, you know, we are fortunate to not live that reality, but I know a lot of people are living that reality. And it's not a lot of people. Like, that was me.
Yeah. That was you. Like, we'll talk. I just want to actually, before we get into this, like, I just want to show people the quick transition, because Simon came in and we already had this plan in place.
Yeah.
So Simon didn't have to like figure it out like I did and go buy all these properties. It was like, the original goal was, we're going to buy 2 properties. We're going to knock them down and rebuild them and build 2 houses with 2 granny flats. And then you just went all in and bought 2 more. So like, you know, which is a perfect example of this. Like, once you get the knowledge and skills, it becomes much easier to step into the next step.
I didn't let the plan hold me back. Like, I was just willing to adapt to new information and new realities as well. And it's just like, I didn't let a plan hold me back from taking action. It's like, just get started and do something.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're, you know, that base level is going to give you what you want. But then as you learn more about the world, as you get more experience, you know, things change, and you got to be able to adapt to those changes, which is what I did.
So when you first came in, you were working at least 50 hours a week, at least Monday to Friday, sometimes Saturdays.
Yep.
You were reading every single book you could on the property market at that time, listening to all the podcasts that we recommended, listening to all of our own content.
Which I loved.
Yeah, which was, you know, again, like, startup energy is the best.
Yeah, it is. It is, because it's all new information at that time as well, and it's so exciting.
I don't know what I don't know. I know what I don't know. I know what I know. And then it's like, okay, like, I've got this now.
Yeah.
And it takes time. And like, you know, how many years in now? 7, 8?
Yeah, 7 years in now, like, from when we really started to set that plan in motion and started to like build the savings. But yeah, I bought my first property in like late 2018, early 2019. So yeah, like 5 years ago since I bought the first one.
So, you know, the backstory to that was Simon came in to the business in debt. We looked at this as a traineeship or an apprenticeship, even though you were doing like finance at uni. Was it management? Commerce at uni. Simon spent the first 2 years saving his ass off, the exact same as everybody else, wanting to spend that money as well.
The Robert Kiyosaki way, just paying myself first and then leaving a small amount to play with at the end of the week.
You know, earning $50,000 a year plus super, like at that early stage, like your wage wasn't crazy. And for the first 2 properties, it definitely wasn't at all. Like, Simon didn't just walk in here and ball out.
I bought 2 properties at like, the first was 50, 55, second was like 60. Yeah. So that was my full-time income at that point in time, like straight out of uni.
The gratification. And I suppose why I wanted to say that to people is like, the first step is deciding you want to do it. The second step is getting a plan in place. The third step is getting a team in place that can help you execute it. Then you do it. Then you sort of review what you've done and systemize it to make it easier for yourself. But you went from working 50 hours a week, plus probably doing 20 hours a week of your own study on top of that, to now a point where most days of the week you start at 10-ish, 9:30, 10. Most days of the week you get to finish up at...
I'm home by 5:30.
Yep. And then Fridays are off every week. Christmas holidays we shut down for like 2 to 3 weeks minimum. Any other time of the year that you do want to take holidays, you can take it. Long weekends, you take it.
Tomorrow, we're heading down to the Goldie for some surf coaching for the weekend as well. And it's just like having the freedom to just go and do that as well.
100%. And so it's not like Simon isn't 100% financially free. I'm not 100% financially free at the moment either. Like, because my income that I get from my properties passively doesn't cover my living costs at the moment. Like, and so it's like, but we have made choices way sooner than the time when we own them completely outright, just because we've got financial peace to start implementing the things that change our lives today. And so I really wanted to get that through to people. It's not like you have to buy these 2 houses or 3 houses, pay them off outright before you start living. It's like, as soon as you've got them, then you can immediately change your perspective and your life on things.
You know what Jim Carrey says, you know, where it's like, if you're not willing to sacrifice a small period of your life so that you can have freedom for a large period of your life, he says like 12 months. But I think realistically, for somebody that's not getting paid $20 million for a movie, it's more like a 5 to 10 year, like 5 years if you're fortunate to earn a really strong income, 10 years for the average person. If you can sacrifice a decade of your life to completely set up the plan, execute the plan, realize that financial piece, and then just let time do its thing, you'll have those choices. There's no doubt about it. And I think a lot of people just want it too soon. And like, I'm sure he's going to be listening to this one. I'm going to call him out on his shit. But my mate Maxi, he's just like so ambitious and just so full of beans at the beginning of his journey on his way up, but he wants it so soon. And it's just like, you know, he's in that hustle. He's working 60, 70 hours a week in corporate Sydney. And
good on him. You got to do it.
He's doing it, but he's just trying to figure out ways to make it happen. I'm just like, every time I talk with him, it's just like, just slow down, realize that like, if you do nothing else, you're still going to be in an incredible position with so much freedom and choice. And like, sometimes you do need to slow down a bit to speed up.
100%. And, you know, there's 2 ways that you go. Like, I went hardcore, you went hardcore at the start.
It's for a small period of time for me.
Yeah, and then peeled back. And so I suppose like what you were going to say before, let's get into like the idea.
Yeah, so the idea is there's 3 stages to this strategy, and there's multiple ways that you can do it, and you know that depends on your personal situation. So we'll just talk to one of them today, but obviously in strategy sessions we personalize this to the individual based on their situation and goals. But the first step, you know, we call accumulation online, but at the end of the day, like, this is where you just go out there and start buying some properties.
You buy the properties that will make you free in the future.
Exactly. So, you know, an idea here, if we start to talk about some numbers, like right now, you can confidently buy a property in Brisbane for around $600K that rents for $500 per week. That's a great place to start. You start with a stock standard, high quality investment grade asset, not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're not trying to break the bank. You're not over leveraging yourself. You're not taking on too much debt. You're just starting with the basics. And this is great for first, second, or third time investors that are looking to gather more experience, gather more knowledge, start to develop the plan, build the team, get the knowledge and understanding, and just really bed down those fundamentals, like a 101 course.
100%. And I'll come back to what those fundamentals are once we talk about these 3 steps. So you've gone out and you've bought a single income property, quality, big piece of land, quiet street, great suburb. And then what's the second step in the, what's, you know what I'm trying to say?
So we're still in the first step. We're still buying because a $600,000 property that rents for $500 per week, you know, that doesn't get me super excited. And I wouldn't consider that financial freedom. So the reality is we go for a second property. And that second property is where you just take it up a notch. You're not going for a single income stock standard investment grade property because you've already got that in the portfolio. You take it up a notch, which means spending a little bit more money, but getting a little bit more out of it at the end of the day. So we like the two income strategy. So buy a house, build a granny flat, or buy a house that's already got 2 incomes set up on it. You know, in Brisbane right now, it's probably the most affordable market on the East Coast in a capital city where you can do this for about 900K, plus minus 50K really at the moment. And then that should be renting for at least $1,000 per week. So now you've got a portfolio worth $1.4 million that's generating $1,500 per week of rent, which is $75,000 per year. Now, that's what gets me a bit more exciting. Like $75K per year, if you own those properties outright, like for me, that gives me the lifestyle that I want to be living.
You know, that takes a lot of pressure off. That covers your food, that covers your petrol, your phones, your rent if you're paying rent, your electricity. Like it covers those basic things in life, plus maybe a little bit of fun money for some people. For me at my stage, 3 kids in private school, at the most expensive stage of my life with like tutoring, sports, uniforms, and then like a epic but super expensive wife. You know, it's not going to get me there, but it does take a whole lot of pressure off that week to week grind of having that money coming in.
And I think it's a great place to start. As you said, like don't overwhelm yourself with a ridiculous goal and a ridiculous number of properties and passive income. Like start with something that is a step over target. Like most people that are listening to this right now could see themselves buying 2 investment properties like this over the next 5 years. And that's step one. You know, it took me 2.5, 3 years to complete the buy phase. But it's taken other clients a lot longer to complete that, 5 years, maybe more, to complete that buy phase. So this is where it depends on your individual situation and how much you're willing to put into building that portfolio. But there's no right or wrong answers. There's no, you need to do it in 12 months. You need to do it in 2 years. Like you can take your time here.
Buy one property really well using the fundamentals we'll talk about later in the podcast, and don't stress yourself out on it. Like just, okay, I'm going to get used to this first step. And once my knowledge, skills, team has improved, then how do I feel after 6 months or a year? Now, we've got some clients that go out and buy 4 properties in 3 months with us. We've got other clients that, as you said, have bought 1 in 9 years and are just looking to buy their next one now. So you'll know when you're ready because you'll have the equity, the money, the mindset, and the emotional regulation to go, this feels comfortable. And the banks are giving me the tick of approval, then maybe I'll think about it again. Yeah. So I love that. 1 single income house, 1 dual income house, about $1.4 million of total value and $75K per year of income. Now let's talk about the second step, which I'm in at the moment, you're in at the moment. It isn't the glamorous side of like researching markets, negotiating properties, buying them, but it is 90% of this strategy.
Well, 4 of the 5 things is that. 4 of the 5 things is boring as. And guess what, guys? You know, if you want financial freedom, you got to go through some boring years. Like, you know, you always use the analogy of like how many free throws has a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant thrown? Like, you know, they're in there doing the monotonous things that they don't love doing, but they have to do to become the person that they want to be. And it's like step 2 is not the glamorous stage, but it's the necessary phase to get to where you want to be. And, you know, you could call this a consolidation phase, but for me, it's just paying down debt.
Yeah, it's paying down debt. So this is the phase that if you've got the ability to increase the rents on your properties or tidy them up and improve them, then that's obviously a big low-hanging piece of fruit as well.
Add value.
Exactly. So there's 5 parts of step 2. Now, these are just ideas that I personally use, Simon personally uses. Some of them all the time, others on and off depending on interest rates and things like that. Yep. But the first step is principal and interest. Now, my accountant said to me that if I've got debt on my own home, then I should focus on paying off that non-tax deductible debt first before I start paying off my investment properties.
Mine said the same.
You know, you guys should talk to your accountants and figure out the best strategy for paying off debt. You have the same accountant.
No, I just love it. It's just like, you know, how we communicate these things sometimes. It's like...
Yeah, it's like we can't give you guys financial advice, as everybody knows. So it's like, this is the advice that I got for me, and you've got to go talk to someone about advice.
And I actually, like, my personal story about this P&I piece here as well is like, I sat down with my broker and I'm like, well, how can I speed this up? And they're like, well, any money you save, you can set up an offset account and you can sit your savings in an offset account, and then the bank's only going to charge you interest on whatever's left on the debt, taking away that offset account. So, you know, right now, 600K debt on my principal place of residence, 100K sitting in the offset account. I'm only paying interest on the 500. So I'm smacking down way more principal. So that was a really good piece of advice from my broker. But he also said that you should put your repayments on weekly, because there's 52 weeks in a year. But if you look at the number of months in a year, you're paying down like 8 weeks less. So doing it on a weekly basis enables me to pay down even more principal over there. So there's like little things that if you've got a great mortgage broker and he knows these little tips and tricks that he can pass on or she can pass on to you, you can implement them and it'll just speed up that phase when you are paying down on P&I.
You know, don't quote me on this, but like if you've got 100K in your offset at the moment, then you're basically saving on a 6.5% interest rate, $6,500, which not many people are going to walk past $120 on the street and not pick it up if it's flying down the street.
Right.
So why would you miss that every week if you could clean it up? And the second one is, what was the second one you said again?
It's weekly.
Oh, the weekly, sorry. Like I've seen calculators online with that. And instead of it taking you 30 years to pay off a property, it can take you, it's incredible the difference that these little things can make.
Like that's a lot.
It's a big deal. So the second one that Simon and I are both very good at is what we call a little bit extra. It's just going, hey, like I was saving for all these years for my deposit to buy. Now I don't need to buy a property anymore and my focus is on paying it off. Then instead of saving $300 a week or $1,000 a week, or like some of our clients, $5,000 a week, why don't we just commit to, you know, paying a little bit extra off the properties on top of the principal each week? Now, it could be $100 for some people per property. It could be a couple of $1,000 per property for others. Wherever you're at, commit to a number and then follow through on it for the next 10 years.
And, you know, you want to commit to it and follow through, but that will fluctuate, right? Like, you know, I've got my first baby due in a couple of months, going on to a single income, you know, high interest rates. Right now, we're not saving as much money as we used to, and that's okay. So I know for the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be less extra that I'll be able to contribute. But then once Tay's back at work and income goes up again, or interest rates drop, or cash flow goes up on the properties, we'll make sure that we're putting the majority or the maximum that we possibly can while still being comfortable and enjoying a good lifestyle.
Exactly. Like the thing about this phase is, while it might be boring from a property investment perspective, it's deeply rewarding and fulfilling if you choose to live a values-based life outside of it. So yes, the strategy of paying off debt is simple and kind of dry, but this is where you get to cut a day down at work a week if you want to and can afford to, and if it's in alignment with your plan. Like it's where you can take more holidays. It's where you can, you know, add more, like look for more joy in your life and go back or get into things that you love doing that give you fulfillment. It's when you can spend more time with the people you love. It's when you can go out for those brekkies and those dinners without feeling guilty, or say yes to those things that you sacrificed during the accumulation or the buy phase.
And that's what we call financial peace as well. So it's like once you complete step 1 and you moved into step 2, you can figure out the lifestyle that you want to lead. And then that will determine how long it takes you to pay off the debt on the properties. But for me, like lifestyle was more important than owning those properties outright in 10 years. So I'm like, screw it. It might take me 15 years, an extra 5 years to get there, but at least over that 15-year period, I'm living my best life.
100%. You know? Like we're not guaranteed that we're going to get 15 more. So like make the most of every day.
It makes me scared. Don't say that. I haven't faced my reality of being a human being yet.
Gonna die one day.
But the next is extra rent or positive cash flow, whatever you want to call it. So looking at that portfolio, $1.4 million for $1,500 per week. So it's slightly over a 5% yield. And with a 20% deposit on those properties and like a 5% yield, you're pretty confident that that portfolio will be neutral to positive cash flow from day dot. Now, if you're setting it up in a different way, then there may not be, but at some point within the first 5 years, that type of portfolio should be paying for itself and some. So this is just more delayed gratification. It's instead of pocketing that cash and that positive cash flow and, you know, increasing your lifestyle, it's just saying, well, I don't need this right now. So let's funnel that into whatever account your mortgage broker tells you to, and you start to pay off some debt there as well. And it's like, over time, it'll compound. It might only start with $50 a week positive, but by year 5 or 10, it could be a couple of $100 per week positive per property.
Yeah, and when you think about a couple of $100 a week per property per year, that's 20 grand a year. Over 10 years, that's $200,000 that you can save and use to pay off your debt over a 10-year period. So it does stack up. And when you buy the property on day one, it's the worst the cash flow should ever be on the property. As the debt goes down and the rent increases over time, that positive gap will continue to improve. And one of the best things I've done personally was get my property set up like a business. So all of the rent from all of my investments go into one account. All of the expenses from all of those properties come out of that account. It's kind of like a ledger, which at the end of the financial year, I take to my accountant with my little spreadsheet. He tells me what I need to pay the government in tax, and then whatever's left over is truly my passive cash flow that I can use to wipe debt or save for things like land tax, maintenance, renovations in the future, so that I've got a float without having to tuck into my personal lifestyle money from that.
And people just shouldn't be doing this stuff alone, right? Like, you know, so many little gold nuggets have come up already that it's like, you know, having a kick-ass mortgage broker, having a kick-ass accountant, having somebody that can just explain these things to you so you're setting it up in the best way and speeding up that process a little bit, because it's all just admin at the end of the day. Like, it's nothing that you need to do. It's just stuff that you can do to make it so much easier. So like, I know in Australia, so many people just want to be like a self-made man or woman, and it's like, that's cool, but you know, we've got to where we are as a species by collaborating and communicating. So like, surround yourself with an amazing team of advisors that can just be that soundboard or be that mentor that helps you see spots that you're not currently seeing.
You know, the two most important videos that I've ever recorded are listed as private on YouTube. And basically, when a client first signs up, they get one of them, which is like a really, really, really deep understanding of how we do this. Like, why do the suburbs that we buy smash the market average performance, and why do they rise so quickly? And I tell them the exact way that we do, like picking markets and suburbs and properties. And then the last email they receive from us at the end of the journey is all about exactly how I've structured my portfolio, from buying hundreds of millions of dollars literally of property for other people and taking their lessons, as well as learning the hard way on my own from 7 different accountants, 5 different mortgage brokers, like 12 different solicitors, 10 different property managers, and getting like a plan of how do you make tax super easy? How do you make depreciation easy? How do you run your portfolio like a business? Like, how do you structure your bank accounts to get maximum outcome? And those 2 videos, which are really not even an hour and a half combined, are like game changers. And so like, not everyone's in a position or wants to work with someone like us as a buyer's agent, but it's not just getting the market, the suburb right, and having someone that holds your hand through the journey. It's, well, how can I leverage off their ideas, their advice, and their learnings to cut what for most people is 45 to 50 years worth of work into 15 and then having choices forever. It's like, what if you could get 30 years back by spending a little bit of money to like amplify your ideas from somebody that is already well ahead of where you ever want to be?
100%, man. But the next one is tax benefits. Something that I haven't reaped the benefits of yet.
You know, most of your properties are a bit older.
Yeah, all of my properties are old at the moment, but I'm coming back to add value to them now. But what about yourself? Like, what are the tax benefits that you can use to help pay off some debt?
You know, for me in Australia, even though we've got one of the highest income tax rates in the world, we've also got one of the most beautiful systems to encourage property investment, because in Australia, the Australian government doesn't really provide much housing compared to other countries in the world. So they need investors to create that housing, and they massively incentivize them to do that through tax breaks. Now, you can talk to a tax depreciation planner. You can talk to an accountant about it. You can talk to a financial advisor about it as well. You can go talk to investors that you know, but there's two big things. There's the negative gearing component, which is basically, here's my income from the property, here's my expenses from the property. What's the difference? You give that to your accountant. He does whatever he does, I don't know. And then he gives you a number back of like a tax return benefit. And then if you've got a newer property, or you've built something new, or you've renovated it, then there's also the tax depreciation report, which you get from a party, give to your accountant, and that goes into your numbers as well. But yeah, like being an investor in Australia, the government really encourages people to do that. And so talking to those people and seeing what you can do can be really helpful. And then if you get $2,000 or if you get 10 grand a year back, then instead of spraying that like so many people do, just have a plan to like wipe it straight off your debt.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, why not? Use it to your advantage. Like, the thing about step 2, consolidating the debt, is like, you know, anything you can do, you should do, and anything you can automate, you should as well. But like, the last one is what gets me excited, and like, this is this is something that I'm about to embark on myself, and it's like the idea of buying a partner property. Because a lot of people might hear this and they're like, you know, 2 investment properties over 15 years, like, that's actually boring and that doesn't excite me. And like, that's totally cool. So in step 2, you know, if you do these 4 things consistently, but then if you also buy a partner property or continue investing, you know, that can be a great way to speed up the debt reduction phase. So, you know, an example of this is like, you know, imagine you bought a property in, you know, 2018 for say $600,000, and you know, 6 years later in 2024 that property is worth $1.2 million, and there's stories of that around Australia, no doubt about it. You know, that's a $600,000 capital gain. Obviously when you sell it, you've got to pay agent fees and CGT and all of those costs, which is just a cost to do business in real estate, but you'll walk away with a huge amount of profit, hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit. And so like, if you do 1 or 2 of those over a 10 or 15 year period, then those massive cash injections then make it really easy to consolidate the debt. So, you know, that's actually what gets me excited about step 2. It's because P&I, a little extra, positive cash flow and tax benefits, all of that I can just automate with my accountant and my mortgage broker. But then partner property is something I can control. It's something that I can do. And it's like, the lessons that I learned from working through step 1, the buy phase, I was like, well, I'm not going to just sit on the sidelines for the next 10, 15 years. Like, I want to keep investing. So I've got more confidence, I've got more knowledge, and I've got the capacity to transition my strategy from long-term buy and hold to short-term buy, add value and sell. And, you know, this is something that's really cool. And I believe that the market has it the wrong way around. A lot of people want to focus on these partner properties first to build short-term wealth, but it's at the detriment of long-term freedom. So you need to flip that strategy and focus on your long-term assets first, build a good portfolio, gather the experience, build your team, figure out how to do this stuff, and then leverage off that to then continue investing as well.
Man, I love that. Like, I've never heard you or us explain it like you just did, but it's exactly that. Like, I made the mistake of chasing, you know, when you're earning up 80K a year and you can make 150 grand in 1 year from a property after you pay the government the tax, that's really exciting. But if I had have held some of those properties that I made 150K on, I would have made $1 million on them by now, more on some of them. And so it's like, as you said, you're trading your headspace, your time and your future now to make a little bit when you can, you know, simplify. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. Like, I know so many developers and investors that trade property short term to make sniffs of what they could have made if they had have just invested. Like, I know some people that have done 30 projects, and if they had bought 2 properties in Sydney 12 years ago when they started doing them, they would be $1 million better off, and they would be 1,000 times happier. And so when I look at the partner property, if we just use simple maths and go, well, if you buy something for 500K and hold it for 15 years and it goes up by 5% compounded per annum, we're going to be sitting on $1 million. If you go buy $1 million property as your partner property and hold it for 15 on the same numbers, it's $2 million. Now you'll lose a lot to sell it to the government, which is completely cool. That's a cost of business and being in the game. But as you said, you're going to end up with this balloon that one partner property could pay off your dream home outright in a day.
And one thing that I want to mention is like so many people get caught up about paying tax. And, you know, I think our dad taught us at a very young age, you know, choose your pain, right? Like if you're paying tax, you're making money. If you're not paying tax, you're not making money. So what would you prefer? And it's just like everybody's trying to avoid paying tax, but it's like everybody loves driving on our awesome roads. Everybody loves using our awesome public transport. Everybody loves going to the park with their friends and having a barbecue, you know, God forbid, but when it happens, using the medical system to your advantage as well. It's like paying tax. We are so blessed in Australia that it actually gets spent on amazing things. And it's just a cost to do business. And it's like, just factor that into your feasibility test, factor that into your cash flow analysis.
And I think the biggest decision that me and you made was deciding what type of investor we want to be. I've done development, subdivisions, don't want to do it anymore. I love the idea of an acreage property that I can build like a beautiful 500 square meter palace on and then sell it to someone who is like falling in love with it in like the Hunter or Bowral or the Sunny Coast or the Gold Coast.
Sell it to your wife.
Yeah, like I'll build it to myself and then I'll never sell it. I'll just be in debt forever.
Sounds amazing.
My great grandkids will be really like rich or something, that I'll be like working forever.
I definitely want to do that sometime as well, because just like working through that really cool project, that massive project, just seems so fun.
So fun. And I've seen people around the Sunny Coast do incredible things.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I've realized I'm not a developer. I don't enjoy it. I love property. I don't enjoy that game. I've done Airbnbs. I don't necessarily love Airbnb anymore. Like, it was an incredible market that's heavily saturated and the cost of everything's gone up except the nightly rates on these things. So it's like they're not like what they used to be. I also recognize that I'm not a speculative investor that chases a hotspot in a shitty town that is going to do well for the next 2 years and then really poorly for the 15 after that. What I am is like a bread and butter, fundamentals, value investor, doing it the Warren Buffett way, which is metro markets and major regionals, houses if I can afford them or townhouses if I can't, big blocks of land in quiet streets, in suburbs with great transport, schools, universities, hospitals, close to the city or on the beach. And that's what I do. And I hold them long term. And we understand cycles like extremely well, like as well as anyone in the industry, I reckon. And we know the manipulation and movement of money and how it goes around Australia based on looking at a lot of data globally and locally. And I'll play that game as well, but not in a 2-year way, in a 5 to 7 year way, or in a 7 to 15 year way. And I think if you start playing that game, that was one thing I realized what I'm not and what I am. And the second thing I realized is I want financial freedom in my 40s.
Yeah.
That's the big difference between us and every other company doing this, and us and most other investors we talk to. I chose to be not wealthy in the future, but financially free now.
Yeah.
And that changed the strategy from going for a heap of property, chipping away and busting my ass in a job that I hate, and missing my kids growing up and thinking that they'll want to hang out with me every day when they're 20, and they fucking won't. I can guarantee it, because we're creating eagles and they're going to flock the nest. Like, that's what they do.
That's a goal.
That's the goal. And so choose what you want. Do you want to be super wealthy and buried with all that wealth and pass it on to your children and work till the day that you choose not to work anymore, and then, like, you know, try and get on a jet ski when you're 70.
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
it's not
right.
fun.
But even when you get to your 40s and you do have that passive income that you want and you can consider yourself financially free, the cool thing is like, you're not going to stop working.
Of course, work on things that are passion driven.
Exactly. And it's like, that's what's got to be the driving and motivating force. It's like, what would I do if I didn't have to worry about money anymore? And it's like, I don't think many people think about that because they're so indoctrinated or just so accustomed to their situation and like the way that the media portrays success and the way that like, you know, social media platforms portray success. It just looks like this external thing, but it's like, you need to think internally, like what's going to make me happy? What's going to fill my soul? And it's like, that's what's got to be the driving and motivating force for the future to get you there. And like having that reality, it's like, why work until you're 65 or 70 and then retire to be physically unable to do the things that you want to do?
I love it, man.
But I'm going to be physically able at 65 and 70.
See my dad at 70.
Yeah, he's riffing, yeah. But look, let's go to step 3 now. So we've got step 1, buy a property. Step 2, pay off debt. Step 3, freedom, choices. You've done it.
Yeah, so basically if we go back to step 1 and we've got one house that's single income, one house that's 2 incomes, we've got $1.4 million worth of property. At the time you finished buying it with $75K a year of income. If we fast forward and pretend that we did this 15 years ago and it's today, or we look based on numbers where we could be in 15 years, it is really simple. So $1.4 million, if it grows by just under 5% a year for 15 years compounded, means that you're going to have $2.8 million worth of assets.
Owned outright.
Plus your job, plus your super, plus whatever stock investing you do. Like you're in a great position very, very quickly. If we look at the rent, 75 grand a year today, growing by about 2 to 2.5% per year, or 2.5% per year for 15 years, means that you're sitting on over 100K worth of income for life. Now, that is financial peace and freedom that 80% of Australians that end up on the pension will never have.
No.
That is...
Well, it's currently $35,000 per year, I think, the pension, isn't it? Somewhere in the 30s.
And if you don't own your own home outright, that is brutal right now. So that's like, hey, like I've got choices at that point. I could sell it all down, stick the money in the stock market and get my 7% a year on it. I could sell it like my mum has and just eat that money. Like I could physically like use that money to live. I could keep those properties owned out and get a passive income for life. I could continue to invest. I could help my kids out. I could XXX. Like it gives you choices and freedom.
That's why we call it choices and freedom, because it does give you that ability. Like you don't have to just live off the cash flow if you don't want to. Like if you're fatigued from owning properties, maintaining them, renting them to different tenants, having the inevitable issues that are going to come up when renting investment properties, you can sell them, pocket the cash. But you got to know that, like, let's say you start this journey in your 30s and you finish it in your late 40s, early 50s, you know, you still have a long time that you're going to be living. And it's like these properties are going to continue compounding forward after that. So that 100K in, you know, another 15 years after that, that's going to go up again. And that property value is going to go up again. And, you know, what we've seen historically is that rents will keep up with inflation. So that can be a great hedge against inflation as well, because, you know, every time we have a year where the inflation rate's like 4, 5, 6%, your properties should historically go up at the same rate. So you're going to still you'll still be able to enjoy the same quality of life. And it's not like having cash in the bank that's becoming worth less with inflation.
You know, and this isn't a theoretical idea. This is an idea that we've helped more than 300 people execute, and we've personally executed for ourselves. Like this is really, really, really achievable for the average person earning between 70 and 300K per year.
You know, like we've got a client like Kim who wants, you know, 8 to 9 of these properties, which is going to equate to over $400,000 worth of passive income for her. And but then we've got people like Hamat that just want these 2 properties that will equate to around 100K passive income once she's complete. And then everything in between, you know, Kevin at 4, Jason at 3, like there's so many different people that are at different levels. And it's like, that's why you need to personalize this strategy based on your financial position, based on your goals for the future, depending on the type of lifestyle that you want to live. Like For me, I just want to have, at least a couple of properties owned outright, at least 100K worth of passive income, and that will be my bare minimum. And, I believe that that's going to happen. But, I also think that I'll push that envelope a little bit further once I get there as well, because I'll have the time, I'll have the knowledge, and I'll have the capacity to keep going. And that's sort of similar to Kevin, like very similar stage of life, very, very similar incomes. And, he initially came to us just wanting to do 2, but over time he found his wife, the combined income went up, talking about kids, talking about wanting to stay in Sydney long term. He's like, 2's not going to cut it. I need to go for more. So you can push that envelope forward. You don't have to settle for just 100K if you feel as though you've got the capacity to go for more.
And people come for different reasons. Like if I look at Jason, who was an Olympic swimmer that came to us years and years ago, Jason was in a situation where he was earning about 80 to 100K at that time, working for like basically billionaires on their yachts and as their like sort of just sort everything out for their life guy. And he just wanted to have a couple of good properties that would replace that income so that he can go back to like starting his swim coaching business, which is his passion, right? There's other people like Hammett. She came to us as a single mum in her late or mid 50s at that time. She decided to she was working 3 jobs, one like almost full time and a couple of other like side jobs, raising kids all on her own with no support. And she's like, I don't want freedom now. I want security in the future. She's like, I know where this is going. I've got no super because I've never really earned a big income, and because like it got split up with my partner. I want to set something up and give each of my kids a property in the future, and I want stability when I hit that retirement age. And she went and did the houses and then the granny flats as well. I look at someone like Kim, who's just signed up with our business in the last 9 years. She's done 9 properties. She's sold a whole bunch of them, and I keep saying to her, I'm like, Kim, everything you sold doubled in value because I just picked the right suburb for you. And she's like, I know, but they were like partner properties for me. It enabled her to pay off her own home outright. Unfortunately, Kim has had some crazy stuff happen. Like when she originally signed up to us, she had a kid and her partner and a very successful recruitment business that was owned in partnership. On the first day I met her, she said, I just want to be free. I want to own my own home outright. I want to sell this recruitment business. And then she did that. She sold the recruitment business and sold a bunch of the properties. Now she's got like $3 million in the bank, and she's sitting in a position where she can do whatever she wants. What she's decided to do is another 2 properties with 2 granny flats to give herself about 150K a year of income and tax benefits once they're owned outright.
I love it. I love it so much. It's so funny. Like the women that we work with, they're so much more disciplined at sticking to the initial goal that they set that I'm like, all of the guys that we work with, myself included, it's just like, once you get it, you just push the goalpost further. It's so funny that like Hamet and Kim have like really stuck to their plan from the very beginning, and it's like happening. And it's like me and Kevin and Jason and all of the other people that we've done this for, it's like you get to the goal that you initially set, and then it's like, that's not enough. And it's just like, because we're all still suffering from like issues that we've got in the past about like not feeling good enough about ourselves, not like just wanting to push it further to prove to society that we are who we say we are. It's so funny though, isn't it?
Man, it's if you're not sitting there thinking that at some point in the back of your mind someone hasn't hurt you, and that there's not some motivator there to like impress someone through doing this stuff, then we're not being real with ourselves. Like that's just how it is.
Of course, everyone's got it. I think who was it? Alan Watts says that. He's like, every single person has that little thing that's like, it's something from their past that's showing up as trauma today, and whatever it might be, a behavior, a habit, a personality trait, whatever it might be. But he's like, be cautious of people that don't have that. Yeah. Because they're fucking lying to you.
Jesus said the same thing, man. Like he is without sin, throw the first stone. Like people are like throwing stones at these women because they were like hooking up with other people. And he's like, well, someone throw a stone here that hasn't done something that they regret in their life, that they're not like moving forward with their life, but knowing.
Makes us human. It makes us human. And like, as long as you learn from those mistakes and overcome those challenges, then that's what life's about.
There's one thing that you said in part 2 that I wanted to talk about, because in our circles, with our family, with our friends, with like the people that we spend our time with as clients, we do deep work. Like, we think about things. We think something that you said was like, it was around, sorry, I'm just trying to think about I can't remember the exact language, but it was around figuring out what you really want and choosing to go for that. Like, I'm sort of paraphrasing that there, but you said something when we were going through that around that, and it was just...
like setting, like maybe just drawing a line in the sand or something.
Or just doing like what you love with purpose and creating like a life of passion is what it sort of comes back to. And I wanted to talk about like 3 tactical things that people can do to transition from like, I'm stuck, I'm kind of unhappy or anxious or depressed, or I'm kind of just not living my best life. Like, I've settled for this plan B we talked about before.
Yeah. It's like transitioning from survival mode to thriving.
Exactly. Like the Charlie Rocket stuff, like the world is happening for you. Yep. Like, it is meant to be abundant in mindset, in body, like in relationships, in finances, in energy to give to others, to serve, to help. And so the 3 things that I think about when I do this personally is, what did I love when I was a kid? So you can get out a piece of paper and you can write, what did I love before I was 10? And you can write down heaps of the things, and then what I do is go back through that list and just highlight the things that actually resonate. I don't filter it, I just write everything. And that gives me an idea of like things that I enjoyed before I had to enjoy them for a reason. There's a lot of people that like hang out with people because they feel like they have to, versus like actually wanting to. And I think about that stuff all the time. And so it's like, there's that, and that's a good exercise. Then the second exercise is, what are you actually really good at? Like, are you good at talking with people? Are you good at moving people? Are you really good at understanding numbers? Are you good at understanding a whole bunch of different things and perspectives and bringing it together? Are you super empathetic? Are you like really good at marketing? Are you really good at IT? Are you a great engineer? Like, whatever those things that you're good at. And when you partner in your life the things that you enjoy doing that you did for free with the things that you're naturally better at than the average person, and same thing, these are all the things I'm good at, highlight. And you want about 4 to 6 things you enjoy with 4 to things you're good at. Just as an awareness of like what you like and what you're good at, and being open with yourself. Like, everyone's good at some things. Everyone's better than other people at it. Like, at school, I was really, really good at PE. I really liked geography because our grandparents just traveled the entire world when we were growing up. And so they must have passed on this, travel's cool. Like, I want to like learn about countries. And so I always loved the environment. Earth and environmental science was easy for me. Biology was really hard for me because I loved that, and that was boring as hell for me. And so then the next exercise that I do, and I do this very regularly, like at least once a year, is I'm 100 years of age today, and I'm so grateful for my life because of my family, my friends, working towards financial freedom, doing work that I enjoy, helping people, like surfing, training, whatever it is. And like, that is the easiest way to figure out what you value.
And what you call these a lot of the time is making towards decisions. So you're making decisions towards the life that you want, towards the version of yourself that you want to be. But without that reflection, you've got no direction. So you need to like do these exercises to actually understand what it is that you're doing. What are you living for at the end of the day? And once you answer those questions, it makes it a lot easier. And then what I find in doing those things, because I'm very similar, is like in those challenging experiences, because life is hard, suffering is the first reality of experiencing being a human. So it's like we must suffer. It's like knowing what it is that you love to do. When you're feeling down, do that. You'll feel better. And you do so. You pull yourself out of these negative thought patterns or these like dark phases of life by, surrounding yourself with the people that you love and that you love to spend time with. and that fill your cup, and you spend the time doing the things that you love that fill your cup that you're happy to do for free.
I love that. Like, and if going from 100 back to now, the things you're grateful for is too abstract, then go forward. So the question that we ask every person we work with is, where do you want to be 12 today? Where do you want to be 15 years from today? 15 years, it's very easy. Like, most people are just like, I just want to buy a world-class property and learn more in the next 12 months. Or I just want to save so that in 12 months I can think about this. Cool. But 15 years from now, it's really just like, what would your, like, the question I ask people is like, what would your life look like if you know you couldn't fail and if you could have everything that you ever wanted? And it's really, again, a value thing. And so the reason I ask people that is because there is friction in buying. Saving is hard. Buying is hard. Negotiating with agents, missing 30 properties because you don't have a relationship with a local agent is hard. Like, when your tenant stops paying rent, it's hard. When a tenant burns down your property, it's hard. When you get all of your land tax that you weren't expecting in one day and it's 10 grand across a bunch of properties, it's tough. Like, when something happens with the water pipe and it's like you end up with a $4,000 bill instead of a $200 bill, these things happen in property. But what I've learned is that if you've got like a clear vision of like, in 15 years time, I'm going to be free, happy, healthy, joyful. I'm going to suffer. It's not going to make my life any better, but I'm going to be able to travel more, help my kids more, help the community more, spend time with the people I care about more. When those hard things come up, there's a strong why. Like, there's a reason you're doing this. There's a reason to go through the friction and the pain. And I think when you loosely know where you're going, knowing that you've got zero control out of anything, and then it's like, well, the fear comes up, well, I'm going to make a decision towards the person that I want to be. Like, instead of smashing 15 beers this weekend, like, you know, most people did when they were kids, I'm going to choose to wake up early and go train. Yeah. Instead of like...
What did you do as a kid? You know, like, coming back to what you said, it's like, you know, what did you do as a kid? And instead of doing the things that like society tells you to do, or like, you know, your shitty friends will tell you to do, it's like, do the things that are better for you. Go for a walk in nature, go for a swim in the ocean, like
breathe, meditate, pray, train, hang out with someone that you like, that brings value into your life. Like, and it has filled me with so much confidence, this idea of financial peace, that like, I'm not fully financially free yet because my income doesn't cover my expenses, but if I hold out and I keep on this path for the next 15 years, I will be okay. Yeah. And it's like it's a very, very, very rewarding experience to be like, where you see yourself here and where you want to be, as that gap closes and you are what you see yourself as, all of the anxiety of constantly obsessing about the future or spreadsheeting in the middle of the night or waking up like with panic or going through your day and missing moments because your brain's so foggy, or even harder for people is like living in the past and like, the best time was behind you. Like, no, the best time's in front of you.
It brings more meaning to your life. Like, that's what it does at the end of the day. Like, yes, it can be a financial target or a financial goal, but hey, there's a reality to the world that we live in, and you need to pay bills. And, you know, it's if you shift it from like, I want to be financially free to I want to be financially free because, it will just give you more meaning to like get through those challenges that are going to inevitably come up, and you're just stacking proof, you're stacking evidence that you are who you say you are and that you do deserve the life that you're working towards. And, you know, like, it hasn't happened for you yet, hasn't happened for me yet. It's happened for a few of our clients, but you can see the writing on the wall. You can see that the only difference between where we are right now and where we inevitably will be in the future is just a time delay.
Time and trust. Like, I was listening to something the other day with the kids with Taylor Swift, and she's like, she apparently got like really, really, really smashed by like Kim Kardashian as she was coming up. And she was like, she had imposter syndrome, Taylor Swift, who's like a billionaire. Like, she didn't think she was worthy enough. She didn't think that because this person was just attacking her because obviously of the Kanye thing or whatever. Like, I don't know anything about any of this stuff, but it was just crazy that she was saying like, I just was faking it till I made it. And it's like, she's so far past making it. She could have just wrote that first album and been legendary.
Yeah, exactly.
But she went on to write however many she's done and changed the world forever. And the way that she inspires my girls with positive messages, with a positive outlook, with like positive self-body, with positive messaging, with like showing that they can be a little boss and like they can do things. It's like, she's changed the world, and she couldn't have done that probably without that friction and without that attack. And it sucks so much that two people that have done so much from nothing, like in society, we have to be like that with each other, as opposed, like we get so much hate on our YouTube comments and stuff like that. All we're trying to do is like help people figure out their stuff earlier than on their deathbed, and just go like, what would your life look like if you could contribute in the way that you're supposed to be? Like, that's all we really want. And the way that we're talking about it is through property.
I love it. It's so exciting, man. And I want to get to a point where we'll wrap it. And like, what we'll do is we'll link to a video where you've like broken down this strategy, because today's more about the ideology, the philosophy behind the strategy and why it matters. But you've done an incredible video where you walk through step by step.
Whiteboarding it out.
Yeah, whiteboarding it out. Lots of spelling errors, lots of like...
Lots of really bad writing.
But let's jump into the end of the potty. So gold nugget of the week. There was an incredible article that came out recently from the Australian Financial Review just a couple of weeks ago. And it was just talking about the capital growth rates around the country over the next sort of 3 years. So come out mid-2024. They're sort of expecting by mid-2027 for most property markets around the country to experience ridiculous levels of capital growth. Now, there's definitely some winners there, like Brisbane median house price going from $800K to $1.2 million, according to these analysts.
Yeah, $880K. So that's a $320,000 gain in the next 3 years they're expecting. Now, these guys don't know, but I like it.
I like it. You know, Perth, obviously, and Adelaide expected to go up a lot from where they're at, like around the sevens to $1.1 million potentially. Now, you know, a lot of these guys are just picking numbers out of the air, but they're basing it off economics and the fundamentals and, you know, based on the population growth, the low unemployment rate, the infrastructure growth, and all of the positive things that are happening in our country. They expect this show to go on for some time, you know, and it's really interesting to see that stuff come out. So, you know, I talk to a lot of people that are like, you know, have I missed the boat? And it's like, well, based on these types of predictions, absolutely not.
You know, the most common thing that I'm hearing at the moment on almost every single call is, have I missed the boat? Is it too late? Because when they've seen a tiny bit of growth in some of these areas, and it's like, you know, the answer to that question is yes and no. Like in some markets, they've priced in a full cycle of growth based on history already. In fact, some of them are over what they should have priced in, like based on history. Other suburbs, like when you go through cities and look at them, like I think we looked at recently 200 odd suburbs in Brisbane, 200 odd suburbs in Perth, 80 odd suburbs in Townsville, a whole bunch of suburbs on the sunny coast. Like, there's suburbs that have absolutely balled out that I wouldn't touch. Like if someone gave me $1 million to own it outright, I'd go buy it with a 30-year outlook, but I wouldn't be buying it to try and do something with that area in the next 10 years.
You still wouldn't buy Sunshine Beach. You still wouldn't buy Sunshine. Maybe you would.
You know, I don't know. Like this is the thing.
Like if somebody gave me that money, I'm still going to look at the data and look at the fundamentals and pick the most undervalued location, because
Sunshine, for example, has done 13 to 15% per year for the last 10 years. So it's done knowing that
100%.
Yeah, so knowing that an area like that has just balled out.
That's way above its previous averages.
Yeah. And then, you know, the thing about this is like, does Byron, Sunshine, Mornington, like Portsea become their own thing? Yes. They're different because it's like it's an aspirational thing for people to own. Weekenders, if you're in Melbourne, you want to be at Portsea.
There's a lot of wealthy people around the country that want these holiday homes.
And around the world. Like it's changed. Like I've been watching Buying London the last couple of days. It's like, I love property. So for me, it's amazing because the homes that they're walking into, they don't look anything like LA or New York either. So it's just interesting to see the property style and that way the agents interact and stuff. But it's so cheap here. Like it's so cheap for the value you get compared to New York, Singapore, like London. Shanghai, Beijing, and so Tokyo. It's really exciting to like get perspective on a global scale. But yeah, like the gold nugget was positive. Whether it does or it doesn't, all of it is positive.
Yeah.
All of it is stirring the pot. And if you add in rates coming down a little bit, money getting a little bit easier to borrow, like it just on top of supply issues and massive population growth and infrastructure, it's like these are fundamentals that stack up that on the markets that haven't already done 200% in 10 years, that's crazy, bro.
It's nuts.
Then there's potential in some others. Like there's some markets we're buying at the moment that have done 2 to 3% per year in the last 10 years. And it's like, if you know how to find them and where they are, there is monster upside based on history in those areas. It might not come the first year, but it will come at some point.
It's going to come at some point. It has to, because it always has in the past. And, you know, the history does have a funny way of repeating itself. But finally, we got the green light on some positive news. This is more of a selfish positive news, but there's always been talks about upgrading the rail from Brisbane City to the Sunshine Coast. But it's never been like, yeah, it's never been green lit though. And now they're redoing it, and it's going to go all the way up from Brisbane City, all the way up to Beerwah, then cut in, go through the new Aura area of the Sunshine Coast, and then cut into Caloundra. So it's going to cut the commute time to Brisbane City by about 45 minutes. It's a $5.5 billion project expected to be complete by the Olympic Games, but probably a bit sooner. And, you know, what this is generally going to do is, you know, lift those property prices in those locations that are in far north, Moreton Bay, or down on the south side of the Sunshine Coast as well. Just make it a more connected region, make it a more connected market. And you know, I would say there's going to be some zoning changes around the Caloundra area where that thing comes in. So yeah, I'm pumped for that. Like, it's really cool to see that this big infrastructure project is finally green lit and it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a big deal, like 200 years in the making.
How long ago did they build that rattler, eh?
It's exciting because you can go follow other people on YouTube, and there's some great books that Phil Anderson's recommended as well. Like if you look at some of the books around what happened in London around the tube or the, you know, underground rail,
The tube, yeah.
and the effect it had on property prices close to the new stations and the new infrastructure, it's significant. Like 45 minutes is so significant.
And to be able to work rather than like driving to work, you can now catch a train and you can work while you're on your commute.
Yeah, it's like the biggest project in a long time in Australia as well. Like it's so significant, and I can understand why they were delaying it.
Outside of all the tunnel projects in Sydney and Melbourne. Those things are in fucking insane.
Those things are incredible as well. But yeah, I feel like obviously if you look at our market updates, and I highly recommend if people aren't following them to subscribe to them through our website, or to definitely watch them on YouTube or listen to them through the potty. Like those market updates are a 10-minute wrap or a 2-minute read of exactly what is going on. It's a full pulse check of the market. But these are the sorts of things that if you know about them early, that most of the money is made on the 3 years prior to owning. So if you can get in like 7 to 8 years before, it's just a very, very big deal. It's exciting. Like one of the mums at my school is a town planner in Queensland, and the amount of rezoning that's about to come through, like happened in Sydney, where you can now do duplexes on every 600 square metre block in the Shire, for example, is so significant. And as the population goes from, 2 and a bit million to 5 million, and then on the Goldie from whatever it is to like 1 million plus, and on the sunny coast the same over time, we're going to end up with like an interesting thing starting to happen for people that can get into those markets sort of 8 years before the Olympic Games.
And this is why we love Southeast Queensland. There's just so much happening right now. But
I've enjoyed this one, man. I think that was such a good potty, just like talking it out loud to myself.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, like just to reconnect to like what truly matters and why we believe in what we believe in as well. And like, this is just who we are. We're not the guys that are going to go and say you can get rich quick. We're not the guys that are going to tell you need to build a huge property portfolio. Like, keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Love it.
Love it, bro.
Let's go.
Woo! That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Getting
Have a
cool,
spin.
bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good.
So nice.